we've got a question from Mintshock. Mintshock is asking, how are textures they are not power of 2 handled? Well, they're undersized to the next biggest power of for VRM. When one has texture that is 50 by 50, for example, should one add transparency around the edges to get to 64, or just leave it for Froox engine to deal with? So GPUs pretty much like for a really long time now, they just support non-power of 2 textures. The power of 2 texture limitation, that's like something that's very, very old at this point, so generally it's not something you need to really worry about. You know, you can like, as long as the texture is within the size limit, like the GPU can handle non-power of 2. Usually there's not really too much of a downside to it either. In a lot of cases also even like better, because like sometimes routing it up to the nearest power of 2 can actually waste a lot of data, and like you waste a lot of VRM, so it's necessarily like, you know, the best thing to do. There's a few caveats. One of them is most textures that you know, upload like to Resonite, and pretty much like this kind of works with other games too. Most textures, they will get compressed with like something called like block compression algorithms. And what these algorithms do, they sort of take blocks, for the ones that Resonite uses, it's typically 4x4 blocks of pixels. So like it's a group of 16 pixels. It compresses them so they kind of use less storage while preserving most of the detail. And those compression algorithms, they save like 4 to 8 times the amount of VRM. So like, you know, that's generally a good thing to do. The only limitation there is, because the textures, because the textures, like, you know, it's compressed like in blocks of 4 on each side, the size needs to be a multiple of 4. If it isn't, Resonite will handle it for you. Like it's gonna, you know, it'll see like this is like, you know, it'll sort of like just rescale it a little bit, but it might have some quality loss. So at very least, what I would recommend is make your texture be multiple of 4, even when it's compressed. If you're doing stuff like icons, for example, you know, like you're saying, like 50 by 50, it might be worth, like, you know, just leaving it uncompressed. It's going to be a small amount of data. So you might leave it uncompressed, at which point it's just going to be 50 by 50 in VRM. Also, I would probably recommend like still using compression for icons, and if it's like really small, I wouldn't add transparent edges. I would just, like, you know, make sure the image is like 64 by 64, assuming you're not doing like, you know, like pixel art. If you're like exporting like, you know, vector graphics into an icon, export just 64 by 64. Like you don't get like any sort of weird scaling things with that, like if you have compression active, because even compression 64 by 64 is gonna take less VRM than 50 by 50 uncompressed. So like, even though it's like a little more pixels, you get a little more detail, you're probably actually gonna, like, you know, come out on top with that. But yeah, generally you can leave things for Froox engine to deal with. There just might be, you know, some slight loss in like quality due like to scaling things. But like pretty much all of that is like, doesn't really have anything to do with power of 2. It just has to do with multiples of 4, because that's how the compression, you know, works. It works on a group of 4x4 pixels, and it cannot do like, you know, half a block. Yeah, that kind of covers it, I think.